welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And today we are finally hopping into New Moon.
Yes. So, for those of you who did not watch already, we have created a playlist on our YouTube channel of the Twilight first book, the actual Twilight book reaction, where, just a refresher, I have read the entire series. Well, minus there was a bunch of books that came out after Midnight Sun. I didn't read those. Yeah. But the main ones I've read. Jess has not. So she's reading all this for the first time. I'm just reacting and reliving the childhood teenage angst.
There's a lot of that.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. But before we hop in real quick, make sure that you're following us on all of our social medias. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Chaos Chronicles Podcast. And that's Chronicles with an S. Last week we did a YouTube only video of our Twilight movie reaction. So definitely go check that out over on YouTube if you guys are on Spotify.
Just a little sneak preview. It was so bad. At one point I apologized to Jess for making her watch the movie.
It's really bad. It's awful.
I don't think I can watch the movie anymore now that we've reread the books, because I'm like, nope, you know what? We're going to save that for you guys to check out inside of the Twilight reaction episode.
Yeah, so go check that out and then come back for the start of New Moon, which I, like you said about the playlist, I will be creating a new playlist for our New Moon reactions.
Perfect.
So, yes. All right, well, to begin, there was a, how do you say it? Preface? Preface. Yeah.
I could be wrong. That's how I've been saying
I don't know. There was a 2-page preface, however the frick you want to call it, before chapter 1 in this book.
What was the preface?
Yeah, so the preface. We begin this book with Bella Swan feeling like she was in a nightmare where her legs are moving, but she is moving slower and slower. She wasn't running for her life. She was running to save something. Her life meant little to her at this moment. Alice told her that there was a good chance that they would both die here. Bella was the only one able to run across the bright sunlit square. The rest had to stick back at the shadows. As the clock chimed, she knew that she was too late and was glad that something bloodthirsty waited. So I don't know what the frick that was about. Apparently Connie does. Yeah, so chapter 1 is Party. And we will be doing more than one chapter reactions for this. Otherwise, we would be here for years, and we're not gonna do that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
No.
Especially not with our schedules.
No. So Bella finds herself in a lush, sunlit meadow, a place that is familiar and comforting to her. She is walking towards her grandmother, who she refers to as Gran. As Bella approaches Gran, she becomes increasingly worried about Edward, her vampire boyfriend, who is following closely. Bella is concerned that Edward would be exposed to the sunlight, which would reveal his vampire nature by making his skin sparkle like diamonds. To her surprise, Gran doesn't react to Edward's presence. Bella then realizes that Gran is mirroring everything that she is doing. When she raises her hand to wave, Gran does the same thing. It dawns on Bella that she isn't standing in front of her grandmother at all. She's actually standing in front of a mirror. The Gran, quote unquote, she is seeing is actually her own reflection, aged and white hair. In the reflection, Edward remains unchanged, still youthful and perfect. Bella is struck by the stark contrast between her aging human self and Edward's eternal youth. Edward whispers happy birthday to her. Bella wakes up, reminds herself it was only a dream, but it did have some truth. Today was her birthday. She turned 18. She had had a perfect summer, but had been dreading today. She felt older. Here she was aging. Every day she got older, and Edward wouldn't. Bella got ready and was dramatic about being shocked that she didn't look different. It was so dramatic. It was bad.
I remember reading all this as a kid and being like, okay.
You don't just magically on your birthday every year just, I don't know, go to the next level of aging.
Can you imagine how terrifying that'd be?
Oh, that would be
That
horrifying.
would be horrible. No, thank you.
No. So Bella was trying to rush and avoid her dad, but she ran into him and had to act cheerful and tried to be excited about the gifts that he got her and said, and she had told him to not get her anything, but of course, it's her dad. He's gonna get her something. Quote, oh, here it is. Quote, but every time I had to smile, it felt like I might start crying. End quote. Bella drove to school and saw Edward in the parking lot waiting for her. When she saw him, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be with him for over half a year now. Alice was also standing with Edward waiting for Bella. Bella had told Alice not to get her anything for her birthday. She didn't even want attention, but her wishes were ignored. When Bella parked, Alice skipped toward her and told her happy birthday. Bella was annoyed and didn't want anyone to hear. Alice ignored her and just continued and asked when she wanted her present. But Bella didn't want anything.
Side note, by the way, I know where she's coming from. Also, if someone says, hey, I got you a present, it is so rude to be like, I didn't want anything.
Yeah.
No, literally, it just politely say, thank you, that was very sweet. You know, I hadn't asked for anything, but it's so sweet that you gave that to me. Thank you. Mm-hmm. You really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Be nice about it.
Don't do this. Bella. So Alice picked up on Bella's mood and asked if she liked the scrapbook her mom sent or the camera from Charlie. Bella said that they were great, and Alice thinks that their presents were a really nice idea. After all, she is only a senior once. She may as well document her experience.
Okay, I get where Alice is coming from, but if I were in Bella's shoes and I heard that coming from Alice, I would be like, bitch, do not rub it in that you have you have been forced to be a senior in high school so many times, but you get to spend eternity with Edward and I don't. Oh, again, if I was Bella as Connie, bleh, but as Bella, I get it.
I was waiting for that part to come.
It was coming. It was there.
Oh gosh. So Alice and Bella made their way to Edward and he took her hand. Edward, wanting to double check, ensures, as previously discussed, he is not allowed to wish her a happy birthday. Bella says he is correct.
That's such a teenage girl thing.
It is a teenage girl thing.
And a woman turning 30. There's something between the two of them. Mm-hmm. It's either, oh my god, I'm 18, yay, happy birthday! Or, oh my god, I'm 30, this is awesome! Or, no one fucking say anything, or I will cut you.
You can say happy birthday, don't mention my age. Edward said that he was just checking as she may have changed her mind. After all, most people enjoy birthdays and gifts. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. And also, let's just assume at every point what normal people would do with a reasonable train of thought, what Bella does. Notice they are two different things.
Opposite ends. Bipolar. Like opposite, not...
Bipolar spear, not bipolar disorder.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, she's a little flippy floppy on something.
She's a little flippy floppy.
She does seem a little, like, depressive.
But we are not experts. We are not diagnosing. We know nothing.
We don't know jack. These are fictional characters.
Yep.
Just like our fictional credibility in diagnosing. It doesn't exist.
So, okay. Alice laughs. Of course she will enjoy her birthday. After all, everyone's going to be nice to her. What's the worst thing that could happen? Bella responds, getting older.
Bella, that is not the worst thing that can happen, and those who have read ahead know, and Jess has read ahead, so she knows. But also, never ask the universe what is the worst that could happen.
Well, Alice said that.
Alice, I don't care. If you want to
I know,
curse
but
somebody,
don't test. Yeah.
no, that is begging the universe to be like, watch this. Here's your answer.
So you're going to like this quote. Edward didn't respond, but Alice did. Quote, 18 isn't very old. Don't women usually wait till they're 29 to get upset over birthdays?
Hey.
End quote.
Also, Bella, in comparison to Edward, who's over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bella points out that she is older than Edward now. Kind of, but not really. In one way.
Based on school records, sure.
Yeah. So Bella was upset. She couldn't see Edward's point. What was so great about mortality? Alice asks when Bella would be at their house that night. When Bella says that she didn't know that she was supposed to go there, Alice complains and said that she can't ruin all their fun. Bella responds that she thought it was her birthday and it was all about her, and besides, she had to work at the sporting goods store, at the Newton store.
I didn't realize Bella got a job. I think I blocked that.
Bella got a job with
Newton, Mike Newton.
Yeah, Mike Newton.
Edward must have loved that.
Yeah. Oh, we talk about that. But Alice went and spoke with her boss, actually, and happily changed her schedule. Bella continues to come up with excuses, and Alice finally snaps at her. And while glaring says, quote, this can be easy or this can be hard, Bella. But one way or another, and then gets interrupted by Edward saying to go easy on her. Don't worry, she'll be over around 7.
Okay, I do love their relationship. And also, I'm with Alice on this one. If someone went out of their way to plan a party for you, like the polite thing is to go and then you can pull them aside and be like, hey, I said I didn't want one. It was really nice that you put one together and it was great, but please do not do this again.
I am one of those. I don't do surprise parties. I remember that there was one that was thrown that I specifically said to not do. And I just wanted a chill day. Like I was planning to go out with my sister-in-law. We had a really nice time. And then my friend was supposed to come over and we were all going to watch a movie. And I was excited for my plan. And then I came back and was just bombarded and I was overwhelmed. I didn't have a great time. And it was just awkward.
Throwing a surprise party, you do have to take into consideration the personality of the, oh my God, I can't think of what it is. The person you're throwing the party for.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
My brain is blanking right now.
The birthday person.
The birthday person. You do have to take into account because otherwise, controversial opinion, it really is kind of rude. And you're basically saying like, oh, I know what you want better than you do.
Yeah. And I did. Yeah. Not. Yeah.
So I understand where Belle's coming from. But again, there's a polite way to go about things.
I get it. But also, like, chill out. They are trying to be nice. Like, I just kind of went through the night and I was fine. Mm-hmm. I made it through. Wasn't what I wanted to do, but
yeah,
whatever.
Although I will say that is gutsy to, talk to a bunch of vampires and just be like, no.
I know. Well, what's the worst that could happen?
She would want that to happen.
She would want that to happen.
Either bit or die. But then she's like, then I won't have to live without Edward. So yay.
Exactly.
Don't follow that train of thought.
No, please don't. Please. No.
Please.
Where were we? Bella starts to argue with Edward, but he just says that they'll discuss it later. They made their way to the back of the room for their first class. Edward ended up switching most of his classes around by sweet-talking all the females in administration. So he had the majority of his classes with Bella.
He dazzled them.
He dazzled them. All the gossip around them had died down. They had been together too long, and even Mike stopped giving her the glum stare. He now smiled and accepted that they were friends. Bella started to think about how she never had much money and it had never bothered her, but she got a job at the sporting goods store to stash into a college fund. You see, college was her plan B. She really wanted plan A to work out, but Edward was being stubborn. I also make notes during this because we do batch record these and I read ahead. So I wrote, "You've known each other for 6 months. Chill."
Oh my God.
So the Cullens had money, a lot of money actually, to the point that it didn't mean much to them. Quote, "It was just something that that accumulated when you had unlimited time on your hands and a sister who had an uncanny ability to predict trends in the stock market." End quote.
Must be nice.
I wish.
Right.
I wish.
I have a sister. What the hell is she doing? She's not giving me stock info. Neither of them are.
I don't have any blood sisters. I have sister-in-laws. I have plenty of sister-in-laws.
Are they giving you stock advice?
Unfortunately not. What are you guys doing?
No.
I know some of you watch. What are you doing? And hello.
Well, one of them gave you squash. No, zucchini.
Zucchini and squash and beets and green beans. And we made a lot of yummy pickled vegetables out of it.
Okay, that's kind of better than stock advice sometimes. Because right now, who the hell knows what's going on? On that note.
Yeah. Anyways, let's circle back here. So Edward didn't understand why Bella wouldn't let him spend money on her to take her out to fancy restaurants or buy her a car or even pay for her college tuition. Edward was very enthusiastic about Plan B, which, as I was typing that, a part of me was like, okay.
I'm not saying anything. I know our viewership isn't really under 18. I'm not saying anything, though. I think all guys would prefer Plan B. Well, they prefer not needing a Plan B.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Bella didn't like not being able to reciprocate. It made things off balance. During lunch, we learned that the older Cullens had graduated and it was just Alice and Edward left, and they weren't as intimidating, just them two. So they sat and ate with Mike and Jessica, who had just broken up apparently, and Angela and Ben, who were now dating, Eric, Connor, Tyler, and Lauren. Bella says that she doesn't count the last one as a friend in her friend category.
Alan?
No. The school day ended, and Edward walked her to her truck as he normally did. This time, though, he opened the passenger door. Alice was taking his car home, probably to prevent her from running to avoid going to the Cullens house. Bella just crossed her arms and says, quote, "It's my birthday, don't I get to drive?" Edward's response, continuing quote, "I'm pretending it's not your birthday, just as you wished."
Okay, see, I can appreciate that, and I'm with Edward on that one.
Another quote from Bella here. "If it's not my birthday, then I don't have to go to your house tonight."
I can see my husband and I having a version of this argument where it's all semantics based.
I can 100% you guys obviously not exactly this, but no. I can 100% see that happening.
It actually happens pretty often. Sometimes it's not even like a legit like back and forth. It's literally just dumb stuff.
I can see that. Yeah, I can really see that.
We badger each other lovingly. Badger, not batter. Big difference. No domestic abuse.
Big difference. So Edward closes the passenger door and then walks back to the driver's side and says, "All right, happy birthday." Bella drives them to Charlie's. When she parks, Edward takes her face in his hands and, handling her very carefully, tells her, "Of all days to be in a good mood, today should be the day." Quote, This one's just for you, Connie. His sweet breath fanned across my face. End quote. It has not stopped, guys. It just continues.
Why? Stephanie, why? Girl, just say that you're into dentists or something. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, okay?
So Bella's breathing is now uneven, and she asks what if she doesn't want to be in a good mood.
Oh, you hormonal teenager, you.
Edward tells her too bad and kisses her, causing her head to spin. Bella gets a little too into the kiss, and Edward reminds her to, quote, be good, please. Yeah. Bella asks if he thinks that she'll ever be better at controlling herself, and Edward hopes not. They go inside to the living room and watch Romeo and Juliet, which was their English assignment, something.
I was going to say, ain't no way they put that out. Wait, which one was it? Did it say, was it the early 2000s one with Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, it wasn't that one.
It's the old one.
It was the old one.
Yeah, we all had to watch that in English. Did you have to watch that? Did we just have vastly different school experiences?
Apparently.
Okay, because every time I'm like, oh yeah, this in school. You're like, no. Okay.
Nope. We didn't even... I don't even know if we read Romeo and Juliet. Maybe we did briefly, but then we just kept going. But we did not analyze that at all.
Oh, we did.
We did not. Like, there was no assignments or anything on it. I think we read it in class. Like, everyone had a part, like one of those like popcorn reading. Not really. Like, everyone had a part and whatever. Anyway, so they went to go watch Romeo and Juliet. Edward comments that he doesn't have much patience for Romeo because he destroyed his own happiness.
Yeah, the key takeaway there, foreshadowing, is communicate with your partner.
Yep. Edward then tells her he won't distract her further because he was commenting and she couldn't.
Honey, it's okay. You don't need to focus on it. I give you synopsis. It's a romance between a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old. It ends badly. He goes, I'm going to die without you. She goes, I'm going to die without you. So he goes, oh, I'm going to take fake poison. She doesn't tell him, and then they die, or she died. I don't. Okay, so that was a horrible summary, but the point is, it's
you all understood that.
Yeah, everyone who's read or been relatively exposed know what just happened.
Yeah. So Bella eventually was able to get into the movie because Edward was whispering Romeo's lines into her ear, and Bella ends up crying at the end. I know. Ugh. While drying Bella's tears, Edward says he's envious of Romeo, the ease of the suicide. Humans have it so easy.
And I thought Bella was the dramatic one.
Well, apparently last spring when Bella was nearly killed, he was focusing on finding her alive, but a part of his mind was making contingency plans because he wasn't going to live without her. He wasn't sure how to do it since Emmett and Jasper wouldn't help him. He was thinking about going to Italy and try to provoke the...
Volturi.
Thank you. So that family is a very old and powerful family of vampires, and they're the closest thing that they have to a royal family. Carlisle also briefly lived with them. Bella gets angrier and angrier. They bicker back and forth, and finally Edward lets it go. Very abruptly, Edward shifts Bella to the side and sits up more formally to ensure that they aren't touching. Charlie's home.
I can totally see that too.
Yeah. So Charlie comes in with a pizza box and says, "Hey kids." Then says he thought that Bella would like a break from cooking and doing the dishes for her birthday.
Charlie is so cute.
I love Charlie. I love Charlie so much.
I love the parents. Well, Renee, we're working on it.
No, we're not.
She's on the lowest. She's on the lowest. But like Charlie, Carlisle, Esme, I'm like,
yes,
we love y'all.
Love all of them.
Love y'all.
Renee excluded.
She's
Cannot emphasize that enough.
She didn't actually come off as bad in the movie, shockingly enough.
No, but I already had the context, so like, bye.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
So bad. So Bella and Charlie ate, and after they finished, Edward asked if he could borrow Bella for the evening. Bella was hopeful that Charlie would say no, since this was her first birthday back with him since he and Renee split. What?
Edward ate?
No. Bella and Charlie ate. And after they finished, Edward
So
asked.
Edward just sat there not eating?
Apparently it became normal to the point where Charlie didn't even ask. Edward just sat there and never ate.
Okay, I was going to say, because that's their whole thing. They don't eat.
I know. Yeah, no.
Well, they do, but...
Technically, yes, they do. Just not the same type of food.
Yeah.
More rare.
More rare. Yeah, Pittsburgh Blue, if you will. Yeah, I mean, I guess. It gets to a point.
Yeah. So Charlie says that it's okay. The Mariners and Sox are playing tonight, so he wouldn't be any kind of company anyways. That's my only thing with Charlie, though. Like, take a break from the TV. Do something else. TVs on constantly irk me.
Yep.
If people sit and stare at TVs all day, it irks me. Granted, I listen to podcasts all day, but you know what I do?
Other stuff?
I do a lot.
I was going to say, having it on for background noise. I'm definitely guilty of doing that with podcast music. Not so much TV. But yeah, just sitting down and watching TV nonstop. And let me clarify, only watching TV, not doing something else while I'm doing it. It doesn't work for me.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't do it. I don't. It just. Anywho, that was a little rant. Sorry. Charlie grabs the camera that he bought for her, and he tosses it to Bella. Bella can't see why he would even do this because she is very clumsy.
I was just thinking, I'm like, really?
So Bella tried to catch it and missed, but luckily Edward saved it before it crashed on the floor. Charlie tells him nice save and asks if they're doing something fun, and he tells them that they're going to the Cullens tonight, and I'm trying to read my run-on sentence here.
No, you're good.
So Charlie tells Edward nice save and asks if they're doing something fun at the Cullens tonight. And if they are, she should take her camera and take some pictures because Renee would definitely want to see pictures faster than Bella could even take them. Edward says that that's a good idea, and Bella takes a picture of Edward and says it works. Charlie is happy to see that, and he tells them to say hi to Alice, since she hasn't been over in a while. Alice had helped Bella out when she couldn't do much on her own, so she was over quite a bit during the summer, because she broke her leg because of James.
Legs, ribs, she was just
everything,
kind of
a mess.
Yeah, she was held together by staples.
Yeah. So Charlie began to head to the living room and tells them to have fun. They get to Bella's truck. Edward opens the passenger door for her, and this time she gets in. Edward drives, and Bella tells him to take it easy. Edward says that she would love a little Audi coupe.
Audi coupe? It's a type of car.
I know nothing about cars, guys. But Bella says that there's nothing wrong with her truck. And also, if he knows what's good for him, he didn't spend any money on her presents. Edward assures her not a dime, but he wants a favor from her. The last real birthday any of them had was Emmett, and that was back in 1935. So cut them a little slack and try to not be too difficult. They're all very excited. Bella was a little startled, but she said that she would behave.
Yeah, girl, you just been put in your place because you've been acting beyond the line of what is polite, reasonably.
Yeah. But Edward has another warning. He does mean that all of them are excited. All. Bella nearly chokes. She thought that Emmett and Rosalie were in Africa. Emmett wanted to be here, and Rosalie said that she would be on her best behavior. Bella was nervous. How could she not worry? As far as Rosalie was concerned, she was an unwelcome intruder in her family. Bella also felt guilty about the current situation with Rosalie and Emmett because it was her fault.
I think I remember this.
Bella did miss Emmett. He was just like the big brother that she always wanted, just much more terrifying. Edward, trying to distract Bella, asks since she won't let him buy her an Audi, is there something that she would want for her birthday instead? Bella whispers he knows what she wants. Edward pleads not tonight, then vows that this won't be her last birthday. Bella responds through clenched teeth that isn't fair. They pulled up to the house, and Edward reminds her that this is a party. Do try to be a good sport. When Edward came to open Bella's door, she asked Edward if she develops the film, will he show up in it? Which that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that's adorable.
Edward laughs all the way to the front door and doesn't answer her, by the way, just laughs. And Bella is greeted with a loud, happy birthday, Bella. Bella looked down and saw what she assumed was Alice's doing. There were pink candles and crystal bowls filled with roses on every flat surface. A little much, Alice.
A little much. Also, is anyone else thinking fire hazard? Fire hazard.
Yeah. Well,
granted, they're fine.
I was going to say I don't think they care much about that. Yeah. One of them can grab Bella and zoom out of there in 0.2 seconds. Well, probably less, so.
Smack, and fire's gone.
That too. So there was a table with a white cloth next to Edward's grand piano, and it had a pink birthday cake on it, more roses, and a stack of glass plates, and a small pile of silver-wrapped presents. Bella thought it was 100 times worse than she had imagined. Edward sensed what Bella thought and kissed her head and put an arm around her waist. Carlisle and Esme greeted her first. Esme gave her a hug and kiss on the cheek. Carlisle hugged her and whispered, "Sorry, they couldn't rein Alice in." Rosalie and Emmett were next. Rosalie didn't smile, but also didn't glare. Emmett gave a huge grin and said she hadn't changed at all in a mocking tone and says he expected a difference. But here she is, just red-faced like always.
Aww.
He then announces that he has to step out momentarily, then winks at Alice and says, "Don't do anything fun while I'm gone." Do you not remember what he's doing?
No, actually, I don't.
Alice lets go of Jasper's hand and she skips to Bella. Jasper was smiling too, but he was keeping his distance. Bella understood why he was keeping his distance, so she was trying her best not to be overly sensitive. Jasper had much more trouble sticking to their diet than the rest of them. Alice declares it's time for Bella to open her presents. Bella states that she told her that she didn't want anything, but Alice interrupts saying that she didn't listen, so open.
Yes, also, Bella, what was that about you being a good sport?
Right? Chill out. So the first box is from Jasper, Emmett, and Rosalie, which is pretty funny. She opened it and it was empty. Bella awkwardly says thanks, and Rosalie actually smiled. Jasper started to laugh and said it's a stereo for her truck. Emmett is currently installing it now, so she can't return it.
Yes, okay, now I do remember.
I'm just like picturing Rosalie like you really don't like this girl, and she's thanking you for getting her nothing.
And probably being genuine about it. Like,
yeah.
Thank you.
So Alice is always one step ahead. Bella grins as she recalls Edward complaining about her radio earlier. She more enthusiastically thanked Jasper and Rosalie, and then yells thanks to Emmett, who was in the garage. There was a boom of laughter coming from the truck, and she couldn't help but laugh too. Alice excitedly tells her to open hers and Edward's next. Quote, I turned to give Edward a basilisk glare. You promised.
Really? Stephanie, a basilisk glare? Basilisk?
Basilisk?
Yeah, because
like Harry Potter.
Yeah. Really? I turned to give Edward a sharp, harsh, pointed, malicious.
I had to add that.
Stony. Sorry.
All the above. Any of them.
Pick one.
Pick one. This was unnecessary, and I had to add it in because not necessary.
Okay. Also,
yes.
When I think basilisk, I think just like Harry Potter, so it's got the fangs. So then I'm thinking she's going like this.
Gonna get you.
That's not a face I ever thought I'd make on the internet.
But here we are, and we will eventually get to Harry Potter, but it won't be our next series. Sorry.
No.
So, I know. Before Edward could respond, Emmett bounded inside and says just in time. Edward assured Bella that he did not spend a dime, and Emmett is chuckling. I don't want to read this part. As she was opening it, she cut her finger.
Paper cuts. They a bitch.
I don't want to read this. Edward threw himself at her and flung her across the table. Jasper slammed into Edward, and Jasper was trying to shove past Edward, and he was snapping his teeth just inches from Edward's face. Emmett grabbed Jasper and locked him in. Jasper struggled, and his eyes were focused on Bella. Once the initial shock passed, Bella noticed that her arm was cut from shards of glass. There was bright red blood pulsing from her arm. She was disoriented, and she was looking into the eyes of 6 suddenly ravenous vampires. I would also argue, because, like, Carlisle's there. So, -1. But, whatever.
Well, at that point, I don't think she's really thinking that. I think she's only thinking, oh my God. Because at least the other time that they were around her when she had spilled a lot of blood, they were in, like, focus on the fight mode.
That's fair.
Now they don't have that. And that's also, fair. I remember reading this and watching the movie. The way that Edward, like, throws Bella back, it is, like, ragdolling her. Where I'm like, I know you're trying to get her safe, but, like, holy shit, dude.
I'm sure it was, like, a jerk reaction, and he didn't realize, like, how much strength was behind that, because she's a little fragile human.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure. And I know his thing was, like, get her away, but I'm also like, dude, you were lucky that didn't, like, break a bone, snap a neck, or anything else.
Kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2 is Stitches. So, yeah. Do you have anything else to say about chapter 1?
No, let's keep it going.
Power through. So Carlisle was the only one to stay calm. That's what happens when you have centuries of experience in the emergency room. He had a quiet and authoritative voice and told Emmett and Rose to get Jasper outside. Emmett now had no smile.
Smile? Oh, I'm sure, because he was all smiling and jolly before, and now he's...
It was definitely supposed to be a smile. Thank you.
I got you.
Yeah. So he had no smile anymore, which was the first time that Bella saw him like that, and told Jasper that they were leaving. Jasper struggled against Emmett, his teeth bared and his eyes past reason. Edward's face was whiter than bone, and he moved over to her, crouching in a defensive position. Rosalie had a strangely smug face and stepped in front of Jasper. Esme held the door open and had one hand pressed over her mouth and nose. Esme was ashamed and crying told Bella that she is sorry, and she followed the others into the yard. I know, I felt really, that's so sad.
Because, you know, like the maternal her wants to be there, but
She wants to be there to help her and like comfort her, and she can't.
because she's the one who is probably least exposed to humans.
Probably. Carlisle muttered to let him by. Edward slowly relaxed, and Carlisle bent beside her to examine her. Alice handed him a towel, but he shook his head. There was too much glass in the wound. He made a tourniquet out of scrap from the white tablecloth, and Bella became dizzy and her ears were ringing. Carlisle asks if Bella would prefer if he takes care of it here or at the hospital, and Bella says here. She wants to keep this from Charlie, and that's not something that she can do if she was in the hospital. Okay, two things. Real quick, Stephanie. So spurting blood, that's an arterial bleed.
Yeah.
First off. So arterial bleed. She'd already be dead by now. And two, that's not something Carlisle can fix here. That requires a surgeon.
Well, maybe Carlisle is a surgeon.
Maybe, but like, do you have surgical tools with you to repair arteries?
I mean,
Either way, Bella would have been dead by now.
yeah. Yeah, this is why if you're going to write a book, I highly recommend you consult professionals in the field of whatever you're trying to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Unless it's like a little arterial bleed where it's like pulsating, but not like, I mean, the way that she described it,
it sounds like there's a lot of blood.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood that is
if it's
spurting,
then you are screwed.
You got to get a tourniquet on really freaking fast, otherwise you're toast. Yeah. And I know that because I'm a first responder. So Alice goes to get his bag, and Edward moves Bella to the table while Carlisle keeps pressure on her arm. Carlisle asks how she's doing. She says she is fine, and Edward is at her side. His face is like stone, and he is still not breathing. He hasn't since the blood was spilled. Alice comes back with Carlisle's bag, and he went to work immediately. Edward stood over her, protective and not breathing. Bella tells him to go. His jaw was rigid, and he was fighting the thirst. It was much worse for him than the others. They began to fight, and Carlisle tells Edward to go find Jasper before he gets too far. He'll be upset with himself and will probably only be able to listen to Edward. Alice agrees, saying he might as well do something useful. Edward eventually got up, nodded, and left. Alice eventually got up, gave Bella a small, apologetic smile, and left as well. Bella sighs and says, well, that's everyone. She can clear a room at least. Carlisle chuckles and says it's not her fault. It could happen to anyone. Bella says, it could, but usually it happens to her. Carlisle laughs again. Bella was focused on how relaxed and calm Carlisle was. There was no trace of anxiety anywhere on his face, and she asks how he can do this. He says years and years of practice. He barely even notices the scent of blood anymore. Bella asks if it would be harder if he took a vacation from the hospital for a long time and he wasn't around it as much. He says maybe, but he enjoys his work too much and has never felt the need for an extended holiday. Bella asks what he enjoys about it, and Carlisle says it's pleasant knowing that thanks to what he does, some people's lives are better because he exists, and also the sense of smell can be a very useful diagnostic tool sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool studies on that. You should check them out.
Yeah.
You readers, and you, if you want. That was a instruction.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I've smelt a lot of stuff. I'm good.
Yes, you have.
Okay, so I really like this passage between Carlisle and Bella, so I wanted to read it. Quote, "You try very hard to make up for something that was never your fault," I suggested while a new kind of tugging started on the edges of my skin. "What I mean is, it's not like you asked for this. You didn't choose this kind of life, and yet you have to work so hard to be good. I don't know that I'm making up for anything," he disagreed lightly. "Like everything in life, I just had to decide what to do with what I was given." End quote.
That's a really good mantra.
I do really like that. Carlisle finished closing her wound, and Bella continues to ask why he thought of trying a different way than the obvious in the beginning. Carlisle asks if Edward had not told her the story, but Bella said that he had, but she's trying to understand his thinking. Carlisle's face was serious, and he tells her that his father was a clergyman. He had a harsh view of the world. He was starting to question things before he even changed. He didn't agree with his father's brand of faith, but never in almost 400 years since he was born had he ever seen anything to make him doubt whether God exists in some form or another, not even the reflection in the mirror. Religion was the last thing that Bella expected him to say. She thinks about how Charlie was technically Lutheran but doesn't go to church, and Renee only does on occasion. Carlisle grins and says he is sure that this is bizarre coming from a vampire, but he hopes that there is a point to life, even theirs. It's a long shot, but he hopes that they will get some credit for trying. Bella assures him that that isn't foolish. She couldn't imagine anyone, deity included, who wouldn't be impressed by Carlisle.
Deity.
Deity. Ah, what did I say?
Deity. But it
No!
looks like deity. It does.
No.
It's okay. Every time I read appellate, I read it in my head as appellate or appellate. And so I have had to religiously redo it.
What is it?
Deity.
Deity. Are you sure it's deity? I thought it was deity.
Deity. It's one of the weird ones with the IE or the EI.
I thought it was a deity.
Deity. Unless there's different... I've heard deity.
I'm looking up the pronunciation. Not because I'm stubborn, because my brain hurts.
Well, I'm stubborn, so yeah.
Deity. You said deity.
It is deity?
Yeah. Ha 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 ha.
No freaking way. I've been saying that wrong my entire life.
Ha ha.
I've totally heard it. I've totally heard it at my Catholic college by professors as deity.
At my church, it's always deity, which is why I was like, I swear I said it right, which is why my brain was just going in circles.
Oh my God. I wonder if it's a difference between like culture and pronunciation.
Probably.
Because like now that I think about it, when I was hearing it as deity, that was my Italian teacher.
Oh.
And then the religion teachers, they had their studying in Rome. And like they were part of the Rome campus.
Gotcha. So maybe
it is like a local thing. Kind of like about. Apparently we say about weird in Minnesota. And boat. Milk.
Boat.
Bag.
All the above.
Oh, I heard it on bag.
Oh yeah, there are certain words that I definitely hear the accent come out. But so the deity included.
The deity. I was wrong.
Who wouldn't be impressed by Carlisle. And also, the only heaven she could appreciate would have to include Edward. My God, what did we come back into? Connie, I don't want to do this anymore.
I know, I'm
sorry. Carlisle tells her that she is the first to agree with him. Edward is similar, but to a point. He doesn't think that there's an afterlife for their kind. He thinks that they have all lost their souls. Bella immediately thought of what he had told her earlier, then guessed that that's the real problem and why he's being so difficult with her. Also, he hasn't even known you a year.
Yeah, they're like
out.
Woo! This would be the couple that is like, oh, you're the Joker to my Harley, and they post it on Facebook in week 2, and you're like, oh, they fight. Like, they physically fight. Like, they are going that crazy fast here.
Yeah, no. Slowly, Carlisle says he looks at his son. He has strength, goodness, and brightness, and that only fuels the hope that faith more than ever. And how could there not be more for someone like him? Bella nods. Carlisle continues, if he believes as Edward does, if Bella believes as he does, how could he take away her soul? When Bella doesn't answer, Carlisle says that's the problem. Bella insists that it's her choice, but Carlisle says it's his too. Bella tries to interrupt, but he continues, whether he is responsible for doing that to you. Bella eyes Carlisle and says that Edward isn't the only one who can turn her. Carlisle laughs and says that she will have to work that out with Edward. That has always been one part that he can be sure on. That he can't be sure on, sorry. Was it right to doom others to this life? They were in silence, contemplating for a while. And then Carlisle broke the silence with a whisper and said it was Edward's mother who made up his mind. Her name was Elizabeth Manson, and Edward Sr. was his father. His father never regained consciousness while in the hospital and died with the first wave of Spanish influenza. Elizabeth was alert through the end. Edward looks a lot like her, actually, and she had the same shade of hair, and her eyes were the exact color of his, which were green. So Edward had green eyes when he was a human. Elizabeth was looking obsessively over her son. She hurt her own chances of recovering by trying to nurse him back to health from her sick bed. Carlisle expected Edward to go first because he was so much more worse than her. But in the end, it was her that went quickly. It was hard for Carlisle to pretend he was a human. There was so much work to be done, and he didn't need rest. He hated having to go back home and hide in the dark and pretend to sleep, all while people were dying. When he came back, he went to check on Elizabeth and her son first. He had grown attached to them, which was a dangerous thing to do considering humans are so fragile. Elizabeth had taken a turn. Her fever was out of control and her body was too weak to continue to fight. She didn't look weak, though. She saw him, so Elizabeth saw him and she commanded him in a hoarse voice to save him, referring to Edward. Carlisle promised her that he would do everything in his power. He took her hand, and she probably didn't even realize how cold his hands were. She insisted that he must do everything in his power. He must do what others can't do. Do what he has to do for Edward. Carlisle says that frightened him. He felt certain for an instant that she knew his secret. The fever overwhelmed her, and she didn't regain consciousness after that and died within an hour of making those demands. Carlisle spent decades considering creating a companion, just one other creature who could know him and actually know him, not know him who he was pretending to be. But he could never justify doing that just for him, doing what was done to him. Edward was there, dying and only having hours left. His mother was beside him, and in death, her face somehow still yet wasn't peaceful. Elizabeth's words kept echoing in his head. How could she know who he was and what he could do? Could anyone really want that for their child? He watched Edward, sick but yet beautiful. There was something pure and good about his face, and was the kind of face that he would have wanted his son to have. After all these years of debate, he acted on a whim. Carlisle wheeled his mother to the morgue and then came back for Edward. No one noticed that Edward was still breathing. They were understaffed, and no one could keep track of half of the patients that they had. The morgue was empty of the living, so Carlisle stole him out of the back and carried him across the rooftops back to his home. He didn't exactly know what to do, so he decided to recreate the wounds he got himself. Looking back, he felt bad for him. It was more painful and it lingered longer than was necessary. He still was not sorry he did it. He has never been sorry he saved Edward. Carlisle shook his head and came back to the present. He smiled at Bella and said he supposed that he should take her home now. And I wrote a comment, no, I want more stories.
Sorry, is the chapter almost done?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll hold my comment until the chapter is done, but remind me to circle back to Edward's mom.
You can circle back to Edward's mom right now if you want.
Good. Okay, so I have a theory, and I don't know if it's been proven already in some book that I haven't read. So in Midnight Sun, I think I told you that Edward talks about how Charlie is kind
of like Bella.
Like, he doesn't get clear stuff from Charlie. He just gets kind of like vague senses imagery.
Yeah.
Whereas Renee is psychically loud, where even normal people are like picking up on her stuff.
Right.
And so the two of them strangely combined and got Bella, who he can't read at all. So that got me thinking when I remembered this section, where I'm like, oh, there could be some genetic component to whatever, you know, thing that you get your power as a vampire, because Alice had visions, everything else. So I'm wondering if Edward and his mom had some like intuition about things.
Oh.
And like with her being delirious of a fever, maybe she could like perceive more or something. And so that's how Edward ends up with the ability to read minds.
Interesting.
The way she phrases that, granted, fever delirium is real.
Oh, yes, it is.
And this is a fictional situation. But still, I like my theory. Let me know if anyone else is backing that theory, but I feel like it's a good one.
I do like that. So Carlisle stopped telling his stories and said he should drive Bella home. And Edward comes in through the shadows in the dining room and says, no, he will. His face was smooth and unreadable, but something was wrong with his eyes, and Bella had a feeling of uneasiness in her stomach. Bella says that Carlisle can take her. She was covered in blood. In an unemotional voice, Edward says he's fine. She has to change anyways, otherwise it would give Charlie a heart attack. Alice was going to get her something to change into, and then he left. Bella tells Carlisle that he is upset. Carlisle agrees. Tonight is the thing that he fears the most, you being put in danger because of what they are. It's not his fault, nor is it her fault. Carlisle helped her move into the main room. Esme was back and mopping up the floor where she fell and was using straight bleach. Bella offers to clean it for her, but Esme smiles and says she's already done and asks how Bella's feeling. Bella says that she feels fine. Carlisle is a fast sewer. They both left. Alice and Edward came back in, and Alice hurried to her side. Edward hung back with an undecipherable expression. Alice takes her to change clothes, and they find something that was similar enough to what she was wearing so Charlie wouldn't notice. Bella asks Alice how bad things are, and she's not sure. She then asks about Jasper. He's very unhappy with himself. It's so challenging for him, and he hates feeling weak. Bella says that it's not his fault, and then asks if Alice will tell him that Bella isn't mad at him at all. Alice says that she will. When Edward holds the door open for Bella, Alice calls for her to take her things, and she can thank her later when she opens them, the presents. Carlisle and Esme both said goodnight, and they were both making quick glances at their son, just like Bella was. Bella was relieved to be outside. She quickly walked to her truck and got in, only to see a giant ribbon on the new stereo. Bella pulled it off and threw it on the ground. Edward didn't look at her or the stereo. They sat in silence as he drove. Bella eventually breaks the silence, begging for him to say something, and in a detached voice, Edward asks what she wants him to say. Bella wants him to forgive her. This brought some life back into him, and then anger. Why would he need to forgive her? She says if she was just more careful, nothing would have happened. And I have a note saying that we are reading a quote here. So give me a second.
Oh God, is this another breath one?
I don't know what this is,
Jesus
Connie.
Christ, I just noticed that Edward's face is the moon on that cover.
It's lovely, ain't it? All right, so, quote, your fault. If you'd cut up yourself at Mike Newton's house with Jessica there and Angela, and you had normal friends, the worst that could possibly have happened would be what? Maybe they couldn't find you a bandage? If you'd tripped and knocked over a pile of glass plates on your own without someone throwing you into them, even then, what's the worst? You get blood on seats when they drove you to the emergency room? Mike Newton could have held your hand while they stitched you up, and he wouldn't be fighting the urge to kill you the whole time he was there. Don't try to take any of this on yourself, Bella. It will only make me more disgusted with myself. How the hell did Mike Newton end up in this conversation? I demanded.
Go Bella.
Which, same. What
Same.
the fuck?
Same.
Mike Newton ended up in this conversation because Mike Newton would be a hell of a lot healthier for you than to be with me, he growled. I'd rather die than be with Mike Newton, I protested. I'd rather die than be with anyone but you. Don't be melodramatic, please.
Pot cattle, my dude.
Well, then don't you be ridiculous.
Go Bella.
All right, and that's where my note said to stop. So they drove the rest of the way home in silence, and when they parked in the driveway, Bella asks if he will stay with her tonight. Edward says he should go home. Bella continues for her birthday. Edward tells her she can't have it both ways. Either you want people to ignore your birthday or you don't. He was serious, but also not as much as before. And Bella was relieved. Bella has decided that she doesn't want him to ignore her birthday anymore, and she'll see him upstairs. She reaches for the presents, and Edward frowns, saying she doesn't have to take them, but Bella responds she wants them. Edward says she doesn't. Carlisle and Esme spent money on her. Bella says that she'll live and then starts for the door. Edward says to at least let him carry them for her. He'll bring them to her room. Bella says thanks, and Edward says happy birthday and kisses her. Quote, he smiled my favorite crooked smile, and then he disappeared into the darkness. The game Charlie was watching was still on, and Charlie called for her and asked how it was. Bella says that Alice went overboard with flowers, cakes, candles, and presents, and then tells him that they all got a stereo for her truck. Charlie says, wow, and she agrees, but she's calling it a night, and she'll see him in the morning. Charlie notices her arm and asks her about it. Bella says she tripped and it was nothing. He sighs Bella's name and shakes his head, but Bella just says, good night, Dad. Bella hurried up the stairs and started getting ready for bed. When she made it to her room, Edward was waiting for her on the bed with one of the silver boxes. He says hi in a sad voice. He was wallowing. Bella got in bed, moved the present from his hand, and climbed into his lap. She snuggled in, saying hi, and then asks if she can open her presents now. Edward wonders where this enthusiasm came from, and Bella says that he made her curious. She picks up the thin rectangle that she assumed came from Carlisle and Esme, and Edward says, allow me.
Good call. Good call. Good call.
Very good call. Edward hands a white box back to her, and Bella mutters, quote, are you sure I can't handle lifting the lid? Edward ignored her. There was a long, thick piece of paper in the box. It was for plane tickets for her and Edward to go to Jacksonville. Bella couldn't believe it. Renee was going to be so excited, but it'll be sunny, so they would have to stay inside all day. Is that okay? Edward says he thinks he can handle it, then frowns. Quote, if I'd had any idea you could respond to a gift this appropriately, I would have made you open it in front of Carlisle and Esme. I thought you'd complain.
Oh, ho, 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 ho. I mean, valid, Bella. You have not been great up to this point.
No, she's been awful.
Yeah.
Bella says it's too much, but she gets to take him with her. Edward laughs, quote, "Now I wish I'd spent money on your present. I didn't realize that you were capable of being reasonable." Valid. Again, valid.
Mm-hmm.
Bella starts to reach for for his present. He takes it, unwraps it like the first one. It was a clear CD jewel case with a blank silver CD inside. Bella asks what it was, but Edward takes the CD and puts it in the CD player on Bella's side table and hits play. Bella's eyes go wide and she is speechless. Tears welled up in her eyes. Edward asks if her arm hurts. No, her arm is fine. She's reacting to the music. Quote, "It's beautiful, Edward. You couldn't have given me anything I would love more. I can't believe it." End quote. And then she stopped talking.
Wait, so was it her song that he made, or was he singing?
It was a CD of his compositions, and the first song was her lullaby.
Okay, so not him singing. Good.
No. Edward asks again, why was it him singing in the movie?
No, it wasn't, but I'm just reliving my own trauma that was mentioned in a previous episode where my first boyfriend ever, if we're even going to count him as that, did the whole cover on YouTube. And
no. We don't count those people as boyfriends.
No, we don't.
Edward asks again about her arm. It was starting to blaze and she wanted ice or his hand, but that would have been obvious. Edward says he'll get her Tylenol. Bella tries to protest, but he slides her off his lap and heads for the door. Edward promises that Charlie won't catch him and then disappears out of the door and returns back with a bottle. Bella took the meds. The lullaby continues in the background and Edward says that it's late. He scoops her up with one arm, pulls the covers back, and sets her down and tucks her in. He lays her down next to her on top of the blankets.
So he tucks her in, and then he lays on top of the blankets next to her?
I need to stop doing these run-on sentences. They're really fucking with me.
You're good. I'm tracking for the most part. I'm just making sure.
Okay. He scoops her up with one arm, pulls the covers back, and sets her down and tucks her in. He then lays down next to her on top of the blanket so she wouldn't get cold.
Got it.
She thanks him. They listen to the music in silence, and then she recognizes that this is Esme's favorite. Bella asks what Edward was thinking about, and he hesitates, but eventually says that he was thinking about right and wrong. Read this quote on page 51. "Remember how I decided that I wanted you to not ignore my birthday?" I asked quickly, hoping it wasn't too clear that I was trying to distract him. "Yes," he agreed, weary. "Well, I was thinking, since it's still my birthday, that I'd like you to kiss me again." "You're greedy tonight." "Yes, I am, but please, don't do anything you don't want to do," I added. He laughed and then sighed. "Heaven forbid that I should do anything I don't want to do," he said in a strangely desperate tone as he put his hand under my chin and pulled my face up to his. The kiss began much the same as usual. Edward was as careful as ever, and my heart began to overreact like it always did. And then something seemed to change. Suddenly, his lips became much more urgent. His freed hands twisted into my hair, and he held my face securely in his. And though my hands tangled in his hair too, and though I was clearly beginning to cross his cautious lines, for once he didn't stop me. His body was cold through the thin quilt, but I crushed myself against him eagerly. When he stopped it, it was abrupt. He pushed me away with gentle, firm hands. I collapsed back onto my pillow, gasping with my head spinning. Something tugged at my memory, elusive on the edges. "Sorry," he said, and he was breathless too. That was out of line. "I don't mind," I panted. He frowned at me in the darkness.
Props on you for getting through that with a straight face. Like, dang, girl.
We're going. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just saying words, then that's how.
I would too, yeah.
He frowned at me in the darkness. "Try to sleep, Bella." "No, I want you to kiss me again." "You're overestimating my self-control." "Which is tempting you more, my blood or my body?" I challenged. It's a tie, he grinned
Ugh.
briefly in spite of himself, and then was serious again. Now, why don't you stop pushing your luck and go to sleep? Fine, I agreed, snuggling closer to him. I really did feel exhausted. It had been a long day in so many ways, yet I felt no sense of relief at its end, almost as if something worse was coming tomorrow. It was a silly premonition. What could be worse than today? Just the shocking catch up with me, no doubt. Yep.
No, sorry. Keep going.
Nope. Trying to be sneaky about it, I pressed my injured arm against his shoulder so his cool skin would soothe the burning. It felt better at once. I was halfway asleep, maybe more, when I realized what his kiss had reminded me of. Last spring, when he had to leave me to throw James off my trail, Edward had kissed me goodbye, not knowing when or if we would see each other again. This kiss had the same almost painful edge for some reason I couldn't imagine. I shuddered into unconsciousness as if I were already having a nightmare. End of chapter 2. Dramatic Bella. Dramatic Edward.
Dramatic. Also, that was a real gag there for me. That one, I had to hand to mouth real quick for that.
It was a lot.
Yeah, the second one also a gag, but that first one was a real, whoa, I felt my stomach on that one.
It was bad.
That was bad.
This is what you're putting me through, Connie. This is what you're putting me through.
I am so sorry.
But don't worry, it gets better because Edward is soon out of the picture. Well, kind of.
Kind of. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up because we're running long on this episode, but it was the start to New Moon. Anything you want to add here?
We're supposed to go into chapter 3, Connie.
Oh, I thought we were just doing 1 and 2.
No, we're doing 3 because we both agreed that 3 is better cutoff than 2.
Oh, so it's just going to be a really long first episode.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go.
All right, getting back into it. Chapter 3, the end. Bella woke up the next morning, afraid that Edward was thinking about right and wrong all night while she slept. He was there briefly, gave her a kiss on the forehead and quickly left out the window when she woke up. He was at school waiting for her, but he was still off, and there was something that Bella could sense, and it scared her. They walked into silence to class. Bella's head was circling with questions about Jasper, Rosalie, and where Alice was. The morning dragged on, and Edward would occasionally ask about her arm, and she would lie and say it was fine. Alice was not at school today. She was with Jasper. He left for a while to nowhere in particular. Alice went with him and was trying to convince him to go to Denali, which is where the other vampires like the Cullens lived. Also, it's kind of ironic because one of my sister-in-laws has a dog named Denali. Is this why?
It's a great name, though.
It is
a great name, especially for a husky.
I know, but now that I know that this is her favorite Twilight book, I'm like, Denali?
Could have been.
Or is it just a coincidence? Because it could be that too. As Edward walked her silently to her truck, Bella asks if he'll come over later tonight. Edward was thrown off, and she reminds him that she has to work today because Alice switched her shifts so she could have her birthday off. Edward tells her he will only come over if she wants him to, and Bella reminds him she always does. Edward kisses her goodbye and walks to his car. As Bella left, she tried to tell herself that Edward just needs time and maybe he was just sad that his family was disappearing. More than you know, Bella. Maybe she should just avoid their house. She would still see Alice at school, and if she returned, and has no doubt that she'll run into Carlisle in the emergency room at some point. Bella then thought about how it might be better if she and Edward were to move away once she really graduated and pretend to go to college like Rosalie and Emmett are. Bella got to work, and Mike Newton was there. He works there too and enthusiastically waved to her when she came in. Mike asked how her birthday was, and Bella just said that she was glad it was over. Mike didn't respond and just gave her a look like she was crazy. As Bella drove home, she kept telling herself that everything would go back to normal soon. Bella was full of relief when she saw Edward's car parked in front of her house. Edward was inside with Charlie, and they were both watching ESPN Sports Center. Bella noted that although this was normal for Charlie, it wasn't for Edward. Charlie tells her that they just had cold pizza. Did Edward eat? And there was still some left on the table. Bella waited in the doorway, and finally Edward looked at her and gave a polite smile, saying he'll be right there and be right behind her, but his eyes went back to the TV. Bella was in shock, but neither Charlie or Edward seemed to notice. Bella felt panic building up, and she moved into the kitchen. Bella starts to go through so many questions in her head. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst I can live through? What would staying away from Edward's family look like? She then thinks if her and Edward left, Charlie would be her alone and they would both be hurt, but they would come back to visit, right? She was going through all the worst case scenarios that she could. Bella took her camera upstairs and she took a picture of her bedroom. It was already dark out, so she couldn't do much more today, but she decided that she would record everything in Forks before she had to leave. Bella went back downstairs and was nervous. She didn't want to see the distance in Edward's eyes. He would get over this, though. He is probably worried that he would be upset when he asked her to leave. That's not why he's upset. Bella had the camera ready and leaned around the corner. Surely she couldn't catch Edward by surprise, but he didn't look up. She took the picture, the camera flashed, and they both looked at her. Charlie frowned and asked her what she was doing, but Edward's face was empty and expressionless. Bella puts on a fake smile and says that her mom will be calling soon and wants to know if she's using her presents, so she has to get to work before she gets her feelings hurt. Charlie grumbles, but why are you taking pictures of me?
Because you're the dad.
Because you're the dad. Bella says it's because he's handsome and because he bought the camera and he is now obligated to be one of her subjects. He just mumbles something that can't be understood. Bella then throws the camera to Edward and asks if he can take one of her and her dad. Bella knelt beside Charlie, and Charlie smiled. Edward murmurs that she needs to smile. She tried her best, and the camera flashes. Charlie suggests that he should take a picture of the two of them. Edward stood and tossed him the camera. Bella stood beside Edward, and it felt weird and formal. He put one hand around her shoulder and the other around her waist. Yeah. Awkward. That's how I'm picturing it too. Yeah. He takes the picture and says that that's enough pictures for the night. She doesn't have to use the whole roll right now. Edward dropped his hands from her shoulder and then twisted out of her arm and sat back down. Bella decides to sit on the couch, and they all watched a show. When it was over, Edward said that he had to go home. Charlie says, "See ya," without breaking eye contact from the TV. This is Charlie's only red flag. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't like the TV thing.
Hey, that's pretty good that it took 2 books for us to get to a Charlie red flag. Or it's not until the second book.
Yeah. Bella got up and walked Edward to the door and asked hopefully if he would stay. As expected, Edward said not tonight. He got in his car and drove away, and Bella was still standing outside. Eventually, Charlie came and opened the door, surprised to see Bella standing alone in the rain. She hadn't even noticed that it started to rain. Bella went upstairs and went to sleep. She woke up the next morning early and dressed for school, ate breakfast. She went outside and took some pictures, one of her truck, the house, and then the forest. Bella put her camera in her school bag and tried to concentrate on a school project. Bella was starting to feel impatient. How long could this last? Edward stayed silent throughout the morning. Bella was so distracted, even though she was trying to focus so hard. In English, Bella didn't notice the teacher asked her a question, and Edward whispered the answer, but went on being silent. At lunch, Bella asked Jessica to take some pictures of everyone for her scrapbook. Jessica was excited and grinning. The camera was passed around. Eventually, the film was all used up. After school, Edward walked her to her truck in silence. Bella started for work and thought that maybe some time alone would be best for him. She stopped to drop off the film on the way to work and picked them up after she got off. Once home, she said hi to Charlie and went to her room. Bella half expected the first picture to be blank, but it wasn't. Quote, Edward looked just as beautiful as he did in real life, staring at me out of the picture with warm eyes I'd missed for the past few days. It was almost uncanny that anyone could be so beyond description. No 1,000 words could equal this picture. End quote.
Ugh.
Bella flipped through the rest of the pictures, and there were 3 with Edward, the last of which was her and Edward, and she noted, quote, the contrast between the two of us was painful. He looked like a god. I looked very average, even for a human, almost shamefully plain. I flipped the picture over with a feeling of disgust, end quote. Okay, Bella.
That's some stuff to unpack in therapy, my girl.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Instead of doing homework, Bella instead stayed up, putting the pictures into the album, and then wrote captions under each. Bella got the photo of her and Edward. She folded it in half and stuck it under the metal table with the Edward side up. She stuffed the remaining photos into an envelope with a thank you card for Renee. Bella didn't sleep well again that night. She went to school the next day and became hopeful when she saw that Edward was waiting for her, but that all changed when she saw his expression. She decided if she couldn't get him to really talk today, she would go and see Carlisle. After school, Edward walked her to her truck and asked if she minds if he comes over to her place now. Bella noticed the urgency in his voice and said yes, she just needs to drop off a thank you letter, but she can meet him there. Edward grabs the envelope on the passenger seat, saying he'll do it and he'll still beat her. He gave her his crooked smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Bella agreed, and she saw his car in Charlie's parking spot when she arrived. This wasn't a good sign. It meant that he didn't plan to stay. Edward suggested in an unemotional voice that they go for a walk, and he takes her hand. Bella didn't answer. She knew that this was very bad. He didn't wait for an answer, and he started to pull her into the forest, and after a few steps, he leaned against a tree and stared at her. Bella starts the conversation saying, okay, let's talk. Edward tells her that they are leaving, him and his family, it's time. He tells her that Carlisle can barely pass for 30, and he is now claiming that he's 33. They would have to start over again soon regardless. Bella was confused, thinking that Edward was talking about the two of them leaving together and couldn't understand why they would leave if his family was too. But she then realizes what he's saying. Bella says she'll come with them. Edward says that she can't. It's not the right place for her, and it's not what's good for her. They start to fight back and forth, and Bella assures him that what happened with Jasper was nothing, and he promised in Phoenix that he would stay. Edward corrects her, saying, as long as that's what was best for you.
He was thinking that in his head, too. That was what I had held back on Sherry. In Midnight Sun, he does think that he's going to have to leave her soon. And he knew, and he was intentionally misleading. Lying by omission, still not good. Sorry.
So Bella shouts at him, asking if it's about her soul, like what Carlisle had told her. Edward finally responds, saying he doesn't want her to come with him. Bella's in shock. He doesn't want her? He says no. She responds, well, that changes things. Bella couldn't make sense of this. Edward says that he will always love her in a way, but he can't keep pretending to be a human when he's not one. He is tired of pretending to be something he's not, and he's let it go for way too long. Bella tells him to not do this, but he just stares at her, saying that she isn't good for him. Finally, Bella says if that's what he wants, and Edward nods. Edward, before leaving, asks her for a favor to not do anything reckless or stupid because he's thinking of Charlie. Charlie needs her. Bella whispers that she will. Edward then says he will make her a promise. He will make a promise in return. This will be the last time that she will ever see him. He won't come back. He won't put her through any of this ever again. He assures her that she is a human and time heals all wounds. Bella asks what about him. He says he won't forget, but his kind is easily distracted. He took a step away and said that's everything and they won't bother her again. It was then that Bella realized that Alice wasn't coming back. They're all gone. Edward says that he just stayed behind to say goodbye to Bella. Alice wanted to say goodbye, but he convinced Alice that it was better for Bella that there be a clean break. Edward says goodbye, Bella, in a quiet, peaceful voice. Bella tells him to wait and reaches for him. Edward puts his hands on her wrists and pins them to her sides. He kisses her forehead and told her to take care of herself, and then he was gone. Bella started walking without thinking and kept moving into the forest looking for him. If she stopped, all love, all life, and meaning would be over. Yeah. Bella stumbled for a while and fell often. The last time she tripped, she noticed it was black now. She stayed down, and she stayed down for a long time. Quote, tonight the sky was utterly black. Perhaps there was no moon tonight. A lunar eclipse. A new moon. A new moon. I shivered, though I wasn't cold. End quote.
End of chapter?
No.
Oh.
Unfortunately. This is just so dramatic. I don't like the first 3 chapters of the stupid book. Someone was shouting Bella's name in the distance. Bella didn't recognize the voice. She thought about responding, but was too dazed, and the calling stopped. Bella fell asleep, and sometime later, the rain woke her. The calling started again. This time it was further away and sounded like several voices. There was another sound close by, an animal sound. It sounded big, and maybe she should be afraid, but she wasn't. She was numb. And the noise went away. I think I know what it was. Well, even reading it, I think I know what it was. It was Sam, right? As an animal? Yeah?
I don't remember which one it was, to be honest.
Pretty sure. Because then a stranger found her and said his name was Sam Uley. Uley. And Charlie sent him to look for her. He held a hand out to Bella, and she noticed his black eyes. She didn't move, and Sam picked her up in his arms. Bella heard commotion, and they were heading toward it. Sam called out that he has her, and that he doesn't think that she's hurt, but she keeps saying he's gone. Charlie asks if she's all right, then grabs her. He was staggering, carrying Bella, and Sam offered to carry her, but Charlie wouldn't let him. Charlie, I know, I love Charlie. Charlie tells her that they're almost home. He gets her inside into the couch. Bella says, but she's all wet. Charlie says it doesn't matter. Then a new voice was coming from Dr. Grandy, Gerandy? Gerandy, and asks if she's hurt. Bella says no, and then he asks what happened to her. Did she get lost in the woods? Bella then notices 3 taller men, most likely from the Quileute Indian Reservation, were there, staring at her, and also Mr. Newton, Mike, Mr. Webb, and Angela's father. There are more voices from the kitchen and outside. Half the town must have been looking for her. Bella whispers yes, she got lost. The doctor asked if she was tired, and she nods and closes her eyes. Eyes.
Also, I'm just imagining poor Bella. Like, I would be
Poor Bella?
No, whoa. I don't know what just English out of my mouth.
That's
Not
okay.
English.
That's from what's happening to me. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. No, but I'm just imagining. Because, like, one of my responses to extreme emotions is to distance myself. Healthy or not, we're not unpacking that. But
you wouldn't go deep into the woods?
No, actually, I probably would. Like, if I'm truly trying to, like,
Getting lost?
yeah.
Oh,
But,
okay.
like, the idea of then all of a sudden, like, half the town has been looking for me, I would be so embarrassed. I'd be like, sorry, y'all. I was just trying to sort through my brain. Sorry.
Bella was basically trying to die out there, so
I mean, she just kind of, yeah, no
gave up
will.
on life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
So eventually the doctor told Charlie that he didn't think anything was wrong with her, just exhausted, and he'd be back tomorrow or later today actually to check on her. Bella had her eyes closed but was not asleep. She overheard Charlie asking the doctor if it was true. Did they leave? The doctor tells Charlie that Dr. Cullen asked him to not say anything. He got a sudden offer and they had to immediately choose. Carlisle didn't want to make a whole big production of leaving. Charlie grumbled, a little warning would have been nice. The doctor says in this situation, some warning would have been called for. Bella drifted in and out of consciousness while people were moving around. Bella was woken up by a phone ringing in the kitchen, and Charlie went to answer. Someone is burning something just outside the reservation. Charlie called Billy and tells him that Bella's okay, but she's sleeping. But he got a call from Mrs. Stanley, and there are fires on the sea cliff. But he didn't want to, and then trails off. All of a sudden, he became irritated and angry. He asks, "Why are they doing that?" "Oh, really? Well, don't apologize to me." Yeah, just make sure that the fire doesn't spread.
Oh, they were celebrating the Cullens leaving.
They're celebrating the Cullens leaving. Yep. Charlie hesitates, then says, "Thanks for sending Sam and the other boys." Billy was right. They did know the forest better than they did. Sam was the one that found her. He then hangs up and slowly makes his way back. Bella asks Charlie what's wrong. He apologizes for waking her and says that it's nothing. There are some bonfires on the cliffs. Charlie frowns and says that some kids from the reservation are being rowdy. They're celebrating the news. Bella answers, because the Cullens left. She forgot about the story. Charlie sputtered that it's absolutely ridiculous. Charlie asks if Edward left her alone in the woods. Bella asks how he knew where to find her, and Charlie answered her note, pulled it out of his pocket. It said, "Going for a walk with Edward up the path. Be back soon. B." Charlie called the Cullens when she didn't come back, but no answer. He then called the hospital, and that's when Dr. Grandy told him about Carlisle leaving. Bella asks where they went, and Charlie was surprised that she didn't know. Carlisle took a job in a bigwig hospital in LA. He then says again he wants to know if Edward left her alone out there. Bella starts panicking when Charlie uses Edward's name. She says that it was her fault. He left her on the trail with the house in sight, but she tried to follow him, then says that she can't talk about it anymore, and then goes up to her room. Bella rushed to her room and ran to the CD player. She opened it and saw it was empty.
Dick. Sorry, dick move. Anyway.
Big dick move. Big dick move. She then went over to her photo album. His pictures were gone, but the note underneath was still there. Edward Cullen, Charlie's Kitchen, September 13th. She then remembers Edward's words to her. "It will be as if I never existed." Bella laid down on the floor. Quote, "The waves of pain that had only lapped at me before now reared high up and washed over my head, pulling me under. I did not resurface." And then the end of the chapter is October, November, December, January. End of chapter.
So Bella is depressed.
Yeah.
Also, I don't blame her though on this one. I mean, does it seem like they went hard and fast? Yes. And also, Edward is a jerk. They're all jerks. I mean, no one's perfect here.
I feel like if he had left stuff, it would have been a easier letdown. and she would have been able to get over him, maybe.
The fact that it's just taking, I think that's my issue with a lot of what Edward does. And I hope he doesn't do this in later books and I just forgot about it. It doesn't seem like Bella's bodily autonomy is very respected and her ability to make her own choices. And that is what drives me nuts more than anything, because yes, she is a 17-year-old girl and we have obviously ragged on her for a host of different things. That being said, she's still, okay, I hear the irony of this. She's still a human being. Like, still let her make her choices. Okay, you know what? I'm fine. I'm fine. This episode is already going to run long with 3 chapters, so I'm going to just, and we'll say more in chapter 4. Any comments?
4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6, which it will be shorter, I promise. The first 3 chapters were like 90-some pages, so sorry.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, there's some editing. They'll be like an hour 45.
Oh, there's going to be more editing than that. It'll be probably close to an hour and a half. We're at an hour 50 right now because we had a phone call. We had dog interruptions. We were struggling in the beginning.
I definitely
for a while.
read that. I don't know why, but my brain went 2.5 hours.
Oh, no, we're not that far. No.
Whoops.
No. So, a little longer episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I mean, this is our kickoff to New Moon. In my opinion, it gets more interesting the next couple chapters. So make sure that you are following us on all of our social media platforms so you get notified when we post our next New Moon chapters. Like I said, it'll be chapters 4, 5, and 6. So you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S. But yeah, so I guess hopefully we will see you next week for 4, 5, and 6, or feel free to join us on our Wednesdays. I don't remember what we were calling it.
Who knows Wednesdays?
Who knows something like that. Because we don't know what it's going to be, because it's just random.
Who knows what Wednesdays?
Who knows what Wednesdays?
There we go. I was like, no, it's missing something. What is it missing? Who knows what Wednesdays?
Yes, there we go. So you can join us for that. That is definitely less lighthearted, a lot more gruesome, thought-provoking, the darker side of true crime stuff.
It's true crime. Yeah. So, you know, it's crime.
Yeah. Well, in that case, we will see you next time.
Adios.
Bye.
God, they're so dramatic.
I struggled getting through these first chapters. I was like, dear God, Connie, I don't know how much more of this I can handle.
I am so sorry. I'm like, do we spark note a couple of some of these chapters?
No, I didn't.
Oh my God, it's so bad.